Hello and welcome to another episode of my Autistic Marriage, and I wanted to continue on from where I left off when I was talking about how I'd been to his house for 3 years. So I'd been there for 3 years and I was trying to have conversations with him and not really getting anywhere. And one of the things that I was trying back then was, because he liked to watch a lot of news, I would try to talk to him about topics that were on the news. So during the commercials, I would bring up one of the topics that we'd seen on the news. Now that sort of only gives us about a 30 to 60 second conversation. But I guess that just kind of shows you how desperate I was for connection. Because I didn't care about the news. Most of it was doom and gloom and depressing, but I was just so desperate to have a conversation with him that I was just talking about anything, you know, and I figured, well, he's watching the news, he must like the news, this may be something he wants to talk about, let me try. And yeah, look, it didn't really work. Even when the ads were on, as I've said in a previous video, he'd go shh, and so I wouldn't be able to talk, or I'd only have 60 seconds and then I'd have to stop, because as soon as the news was on, conversation ceased. So that was one of the things I was trying, not really getting me anywhere, but still giving it a red hot shot. And I remember he did shift work, and there were moments where he'd be coming and I'd be going, and we'd be passing each other on this long road. And the looks that we would give each other, like I would just be so unhappy, so angry, so miserable that I could barely smile as he drove by me. Sometimes I used to want to give him the bird. Sometimes I imagined just driving into him, just swerving just to scare him, you know. I really just wanted to get in my car and just drive and never come back. But that wasn't an option. Eventually, after those 3 years, I left, and when I was back at my house, it was heaven. It was so nice. I was finally back with my music. I started doing my house up. I started singing and dancing all over the place. I was just having a wonderful time. Yeah, we were separated for 6 months because he was still working at his place, and I think he'd gotten a promotion. I'm not sure, but he'd said something about a pay increase or something like this, and then he didn't want to come back to where I was to live, to give up that place. So he stayed there, and our phone conversations were so bad. I kept trying to bring them back to how they were when we were recording, you know, talking a little bit sort of raunchy and playful and things like this. But it just wasn't working. It didn't matter what was said. There would somehow be this thing where he would talk, it would trigger a response in me about something negative that would happen, or I would say something and it would trigger something in him. And so we were getting triggered all over the place by those 3 years of unresolved issues. So our phone conversations ended up being really tense, really sort of fraught, and not at all fun or playful. I mean, we probably had the odd phone call here and there that was nice and joyful and, you know, sexy maybe, but for the most part it was pretty tense. And so he starts saying to me that he's not really sure that he wants to come and live with me. And at first I was really wanting him to just say that he loves me so much, I'm the best thing that's ever happened to him, and he just wants to be with me. So I was hanging to hear that, and it just wasn't happening. It wasn't being said, it wasn't forthcoming. And so after a while, I kind of flipped my tune. I just said to him, don't worry about it then. Don't come. Just stay there, live your life, I'll live mine, all will be well. And that instantly made him flip. The next time we spoke, he was talking about how he couldn't handle the idea of me being with someone else, whenever we split up, that's one of the main things that he says. It's not so much that he'll say, I really adore you, I really cherish you, I don't want to let you go. He will say things like, I'd be a fool to give this up. But his primary statement is that he can't stand the idea of me being with another man sexually. Anyway, he then starts talking about how he's got a sex book as well, adult sex education book, and he's reading through it, and everything that I've been saying about foreplay and intimacy and conversation and pillow talk and all this sort of stuff, the book is saying as well. So therefore, he's finally realised that I'm right. And I remember thinking, this means that he is missing me, he really wants to come back to me, and he's going to put in this whack ton of effort to make things better. And he did often make those kinds of promises. I'll try to be better, I'll be this, I'll do that, I'll be whatever you want, I'll improve, I'll, you know, on and on and on. So while he's gone, I didn't pay much attention to the fact that I was suddenly really happy. I thought it was because I was back at my place, and I didn't realise it was because he wasn't there. I sort of thought that when he came, all would be well because I'm back at my house and I've got my music and I'm doing my house up and I'm painting it and all of that sort of stuff. So it didn't occur to me that my happiness was related to the fact that he wasn't around. I really just thought that I missed him and that I wanted him there, and that I just wanted to hear him say that he missed me and wanted to be with me. And it was kind of all that I was focusing on, aside from the fact that I was now doing my house up and having a good time, going out with friends and, you know, rocking on. So when he did say that he'd gotten that book and that he wanted to put in some effort and all this sort of stuff, I thought that was him saying that he really cherished me and adored me and missed me and wanted to be with me. And I guess he was saying that, but at the same time he wasn't, because when he did eventually get there, he didn't do any of the things that he'd promised. He put the book down and never looked at it again. He didn't improve with foreplay, he didn't instigate it, he didn't want to do any of it. He went straight back to watching a whack ton of telly and not wanting to talk. And my saving grace was that I was doing up the house and I had friends to hang out with and be with, and so he could sort of do his thing and be himself while I did myself. However, that was really still kind of lonely because he was there and he wasn't. He still wasn't taking me dancing, he still wasn't doing the things that I really wanted to do, even though when we'd met he said he loved dancing and he loved going to discos. All of a sudden he's just refusing to take me. It just didn't matter what day I suggested, when I suggested, how I suggested, the answer was always no. And I didn't have friends who liked going out dancing, so that was just one of those things that just died in the bum. And so you might be wondering why I'm telling you this in the sequence that I am. And the reason for that is because I've had people say to me, why are you with him? Why did you stay? Why did you take him back? Why? And the answer to that is relationships happen in sequences. They don't happen all in one hit where you can see the direction you're heading. You don't know the direction you're heading because it's happening in dribs and drabs. And one thing that I haven't mentioned, I don't think, is that in amongst this sort of tension that we're building, there were these really good moments. And anybody who's in an abusive relationship will tell you that their abusive partner is not always abusive. And when they're not abusive, they're really, really cool. They're really lovely in some way. That's what attracted them to them in the first place. So it might be that they have this real charm, this real charisma, this real sort of spunk about them. And my man was no different. even though he wasn't affectionate and complimenting me and paying me lots of attention and all the rest of it, he was definitely candy on the eyes. He was a good-looking man. He had a great smile. He had a great laugh. I loved it when we did laugh. I loved it when we had those moments of, say, going for a walk along the beach or going to a restaurant or going for bushwalks. So we did the odd thing. It was not always not doing anything, if you understand what I'm saying. It was a bit of, it kind of, how I like to sort of visualize it is we kind of coasted along. And every now and then there'd be this dip, you know, this crappy thing that's happened. Then there'd be one of these and then we'd mostly coast. So a lot of our relationship was just coasting along, him doing him, me doing me, and no real connection, no real compliments or anything like this, no real conversation, but just plodding along and getting along for the most part. Then we'd have this sort of downturn thing where he might say, hey, how about you do this thing my way? And I would say, no thanks, I've got this. And then we'd have a kerfussle about that, and then we'd be a bit aggro with each other for a little while, and then we would move on. And then we'd have this nice sort of high time where maybe I'd instigated a really great sex session and it turned out really awesome, and for days I was on this random high. Or we might have seen a movie together and the movie was really fun, or we'd gone to visit somebody and we'd had a good time there. So it was kind of like this coasting, down, up, coasting type of situation. So that's why I'm mentioning that in this sequence, because I wanted you to understand that it wasn't easy to see. I'm retelling it to you now, and I can focus on any of the negative bits or the positive bits that I choose to. Memory has it that I remember most of the negative things, but that's just memory. Maybe it's just my memory. But anyway, the point being is that I didn't see the direction we were going. I was just in it in the moment. There were all these frustrations going along and I couldn't see it for what it was. And on that note, let me know if it was the same for you. When you were in your Aspie relationship, in those early days, there would have been signs and signals and things like this, but there would have also been things that kept you there. And I'm curious to know what those things would have been. So please leave a comment below and share that with me. I'd really love to know how it went for you. Did you travel on the same path where it was kind of cool most of the time, and then you'd have a fight or a fallout or something, and then you'd have a good moment, and then it'd just be cool again? And if you were an Aspie, did you find that it worked this way for you in your relationships, where for the most part you just kind of got along, quietly got along, sat in the same place and were just kind of friends or there for each other? Anyway, please leave a comment. I love to hear your thoughts and views, and if you share your stories, that would be great. And thank you very much for taking the time to watch my video.